Russian hackers tried to sow chaos in Madrid during the general elections on July 23rd, which were won by Pedro Sánchez. Let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome to a new edition of Medidas Cautelares, and I'll tell you that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. The information we're going to reveal today exclusively seems incredible to me. It's a real bombshell to give us an idea of what's been happening in recent years in the world in general and in Spain in particular. Pay close attention to the information I'm going to tell you about the activity of a group of hackers. A Russian who wanted to destabilize, to sow chaos in the general elections. In the last general elections in Spain on July 23rd, 2023, which brought Pedro Sánchez to La Moncloa for the third time. And pay close attention because I'm going to reveal what that group of Russian hackers had planned. It's shocking. So stay until the end of the video because I know you're going to like it. Like I said, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, and you can't miss this video. We're going to share this information on screen, just like we always do, to tell you all the details that honestly blew my mind when I heard about them. You already have it on the screen. Well, this is the night of the election on July 23rd, 2023. You already know it was a strange, suspicious election. This man scheduled it in the middle of summer, so there would be a lot of mail-in voting. Anyway, there were a lot of strange things in that election. The PP swept the Senate, but not the Congress. Anyway, very strange things. But you're going to be amazed by what I'm about to tell you next. Pay attention. Russian hackers tried to bring Madrid to a standstill during the general elections held in Spain on July 23rd, 2023. July 23rd. With, listen carefully, automated phone calls. To taxis, you heard that right. Let me remind you, the elections were called early by Pedro Sánchez after the poor results for the PSOE in the municipal and regional elections in May 2023. The PP, led by Alberto Núñez Feijóo, won the elections but couldn't form a government because together with Vox they didn't reach the 176 seats needed for a majority. Sánchez managed to be sworn in again in November 2023 after securing the support of Junts per Catalunya, Carles Puigdemont's party, in exchange, among other things, for the controversial amnesty law for October 1st. In this way, Sánchez's third government was formed thanks to the coalition with Sumar and the external parliamentary support of pro-independence, nationalist or pro-ETA parties. Well, sources from the case consulted by Libertad Digital and Medidas Cautelares tell us that the National Court is currently investigating under secrecy the criminal activity of the Russian hacker group No Name C. 057, as you heard, No Name 057. The head of the Central Investigative Court No. 6, Antonio Piña, is investigating the attacks of these hackers in Spain until the year 2024 with the help of the Civil Guard. Meanwhile, the head of the Central Investigative Court No. 1, Francisco de Jorge, is in charge of the investigation of these Russian hackers from the year 2024 to the present. That is, the investigation is divided into two periods. Another judge, one is handled by the police, the other by the Civil Guard. Well, they tell us that the investigation is very advanced and that possibly in a short time it can be confirmed by the police. That the Kremlin, that is the government of Vladimir Putin, is directly responsible for the attacks carried out in Spain through this group of hackers. No Name 057 is a hacktivist group, that is, a group of activist hackers pro-Russian and originally from Russia that has been active since March 2022, shortly after the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Their activity is mainly focused on overwhelming websites with massive traffic to make them temporarily inaccessible. Their main targets are countries and organizations they consider anti-Russian, especially Ukraine and its allies, members of NATO, the European Union, or the United States. Their stated goal is to silence entities critical of Russia or that support Ukraine, that are in places like Europe, that are in contact with the border, and that are in contact with Russia. It's the countries that are on the border with Russia. Well, the same sources consulted emphasize that these hackers, the attacks have been carried out through, that's how it has been. La verdad es que vaya nombre. Well, they tried to shut down Madrid during the last general elections. 3 de julio de 2023, and they did it with this. See? Taxis. Exactly. This is a stock photo. Well, they tried to shut down Madrid with taxis. How did they try to do it? Well, they organized an automated phone call system to the taxi services, meaning radio taxi, teletaxi, all these services, to send all the vehicles to the same point in the city. The goal was to create traffic chaos, shut down the capital, and scare the population to destabilize the elections. That's the information we revealed exclusively. In the end, the automated phone call system didn't work since it took several seconds to start after the taxi services picked up the phone. That's why the calls from the Russian hackers weren't answered, and as a result, the taxis weren't dispatched to those points in the city of Madrid in order to paralyze the capital. It should be noted that according to published reports, Spain has suffered around 500 attacks from this Russian hacker group since 2022. I mean, just think about what I'm telling you. Among their victims were reportedly the Ministry of the Interior, La Moncloa, the National Institute of Statistics, ANE, Renfe, the Central Electoral Board, and other official websites during the mentioned general elections. In fact, there were occasional disruptions that did not affect the official vote count. And now let's talk about the current situation of this Russian hacker group No Name 057, and I'm going to show you this image. This corresponds to an operation called Eastwood by Europol and other organizations that was carried out last year. Okay? From countries all over the world precisely to dismantle this gang. We see the United States, Canada, we see here many European countries including Spain, okay? And here, well, we have a bit of the result of this Europol Eastwood operation, okay? Now we're going to go over some of the main milestones of this operation that practically dismantled this Russian hacker group. Well, in July 2025, an international coordinated operation, Europol and Eurojust, which is the European Union's Agency for Judicial Cooperation, and Europol, the European Police, in an operation called Operation Eastwood, dismantled much of the infrastructure of No Name 057. Specifically, more than 100 servers were seized, arrest warrants were issued, and arrests were made in countries such as France, Germany, and Spain. The police and judicial authorities of the Czech Republic, France, Finland, Germany, Italy, Lithuania, Poland, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, the Netherlands, and the United States took simultaneous action against the criminals and the infrastructure belonging to the pro-Russian cybercrime network. The investigation was also supported by ENISA, which is the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, as well as Belgium, Canada, Estonia, Denmark, Latvia, Romania, and Ukraine. As you can see, a large-scale global operation. There were raids in our country, but also in Italy and Germany. In addition, there were half a dozen arrests, including the alleged leaders. Well, despite this operation, the core of this hacker group, No Name 057, remains in Russia and continues its activity, although on a smaller scale. That is, we could say that it has been almost completely dismantled, but since the central core is in Russia, that part still hasn't been taken down, and so they still carry out some attacks. These Russian hackers carry out attacks, but in a more spontaneous way, more unusual, so to speak, less frequently from time to time. They no longer have the power they had before this Eastwood operation by Eurojust and Europol. Well, I think that after this information, there are many things to reflect on. For example, why is this being followed? Investigation in 2 different proceedings in the National Court? I find that curious, don't you? Judge Piña handles one, Judge De Jorge the other. We're talking about investigating the activity of No Name 057, which is what this Russian hacker group is called, from its creation until 2024 and from 2024 to the present. But it's not just divided into those 2 periods. There's also a part of the investigation up to 2024, which includes the 2020 general elections. The Civil Guard is handling the July 23rd elections, which Sánchez won, while the National Police have handled it since 2024. Honestly, to me, this seems pretty curious, pretty striking. This, of course, also deserves further reflection. Who is Pedro Sánchez supporting now? Okay, people can draw their own conclusions. I'm just presenting the facts. Who is Spain supporting now? Well, I mean, Pedro Sánchez is Spain. The Spanish people are another matter. Well, not the United States. We are aligning ourselves with this side regarding the war in Iran. So we are aligning ourselves with Iran. We are aligning ourselves with China. We are aligning ourselves with Russia, with North Korea, and so on, right? Hey, what a coincidence. These are coincidences. I'm just stating facts. They're all coincidences. It's a coincidence that a Russian hacker group was meddling in the last general elections that Pedro Sánchez won. Doesn't that seem a bit strange or suspicious to you? Isn't it odd that the Civil Guard and National Police are both handling this investigation separately? It seems strange to me, it seems odd, but hey, what a coincidence, what a coincidence, because a lot of investigations have been opened here. Do you remember? In the United States, an investigation was opened into Trump's first victory about whether Russia was meddling and all that. Well, here Russia is also meddling. And what a coincidence that now Pedro Sánchez is taking international positions closer to Putin's Russia than to Trump's United States. I'm just putting all these facts on the table like I always do. They're objective facts and everyone can draw their own conclusions. Now then, I find what I just told you particularly shocking and appalling. We're talking about a Russian hacker group that had organized an operation with automated phone calls to taxi services to send all the taxis to several points in Madrid, or even just one, to create traffic chaos and cause panic. Because of course, just imagine on election day if this had been carried out as the Russian hackers had planned. Imagine that suddenly parts of the city start to become congested. People don't know what's happening. Panic starts to spread. Why have they sent so many taxis here? What's going on? It's an election day when there should be calm and tranquility. Imagine the destabilization that would have been created in the city and in Spain. And it must be said that what is called hybrid warfare, which Russia is carrying out, is precisely through disinformation and operations of this kind, that is, through Russian hackers who create instability. They don't just carry out cyber attacks, attacks on infrastructure, on websites, and so on. They also conduct these kinds of operations. In the end, attacks on a country like Spain were aimed at creating total destabilization on election day, and as I said, fear and panic. In the end, they didn't succeed because it went wrong for them because they added more seconds before the call started. Since the taxi services would pick up and the taxi services would say, "Hey, no one is answering here, I'm hanging up," if it hadn't been brought to light. But well, this is what happens in Spain and what happens in the world. I believe that you all have the right to know, of course, what is happening and about the ongoing judicial investigations. That's why Medidas Cautelares is here. That's all for this edition of Medidas Cautelares. Share your opinions. I'm genuinely interested. What do you think? Feels like a spy movie, right? Well, no, it really happens. This is real life. This happens. This isn't a science fiction story. This is information and it happens in Spain and around the world. Leave me your opinions. If you like the video, share it with whoever you want. You already know that you can become members like the chosen ones for less than €3 a month, or like the supreme ones for less than €7 a month. You can also make contributions via Bizum at 627-556-370. I want to thank you again for being there every day watching the videos. Some you like more, some you like less, right? I can tell. Obviously, you can't like every series and every movie, and you can't like every Medidas Cautelares video either, but we always do our job every day on time, giving you all this first-hand information. Thank you all for your support. As I always say, support is crucial for sharing this information with everyone. And today even more so because information is power. See you soon.